Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tyler Canning, and I am a graduate from Oakland University with a bachelor's degree in occupational safety and health. Upon graduation, I became a certified safety professional and also found my passion for agricultural safety when I landed my first career as an environmental health and safety specialist for a large Southeast Michigan agricultural company. Due to the ongoing pest problem that's been harming the area's agricultural production, I have been brought in by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to conduct training on a process known as integrated pest management for Southeast Michigan residents currently looking for employment. From my personal experience utilizing this system in day-to-day job tasks, I can tell you that integrated pest management, also known as IPM, has proven results in mitigating pests while promoting worker and crop safety. Now let's talk about the issue at hand. Pest issues have recently plagued Southeast Michigan agricultural communities, with crops and workers consistently being harmed by unwanted pests. There have been many reported incidents of employees' skin being harmed, which is likely due to lack of proper personal protection equipment, and crops have also been damaged and even contaminated, which has led to foodborne illness in employees as well as some consumers. Increased harm from pests means less production, and a decreased production leads to a decrease in company profit. The ongoing pest issue is a direct result of the lack of utilization of proper preventive controls and monitoring, which are two staples of integrated pest management. IPM uses a variety of different types of controls, which we will get to later in the presentation. Based upon the points that I've just mentioned, the system of pest management and prevention that is currently in place here is not producing desired results. Therefore, IPM programs are needed. Before we get into the training content, it's important to understand just what types of people our trainees are so that the training session can be catered directly to them. Target trainees for this program will be Southeast Michigan residents that are former agricultural workers or unemployed, including veterans, women, and minorities. Since the trainees are adults, it is very important for myself as the trainer to understand exactly how adults learn so that the training is an easygoing and valuable experience for them. There are two very important learning laws for me to consider. The law of association states that trainees learn when new facts, ideas, concepts, or behaviors are related to something that they already know. This applies to trainees who have previously worked in agriculture. They should be able to easily absorb the training content by comparing it to similar concepts that they already know. The law of readiness states that trainees will learn when they are ready to learn. In this case, each trainee is here because they're seeking employment, so they are all ready to learn. This coincides with one of the main principles of andragogy, or adult learning, which says that adult learners are internally motivated and know what they need to learn. Thus, the training must be relevant to them. Each trainee here knows the training is necessary for them to gain future employment, so that is a leading motivator for them. Motivating the trainees will not be an issue here. Now, let's see what exactly this training seeks to accomplish. The purpose of this training program is to educate trainees on the process of integrated pest management, or IPM, so that upon landing a job in agriculture, they may implement their own IPM programs and utilize its methods in order to bring production back up by better protecting themselves and crops from pests. Now for a few quick training objectives. The training content from this session can be broken down into 4 basic training objectives. Upon completion of this training, trainees will, number 1, know the different classifications of pests and be able to quickly identify them when needed. 2, understand the core principles of IPM and why it is the effective choice in pest management. 3, understand and be able to properly utilize the different control methods of IPM, including biological, cultural, physical, and chemical controls. And number 4, have the ability to implement their own IPM programs and begin educating others on the basic concepts. Prior to the beginning of the training session, I provided trainees with a short 5-question survey, which asked them to rate their own knowledge on IPM-related concepts using a Likert scale format. My purpose for doing this is to see which concepts trainees may already be somewhat familiar with and which ones are completely new to them. By knowing this information beforehand, I will know which concepts to emphasize during the session and which ones to spend less time on. The first question asks trainees to rate their knowledge of the different classifications of pests, with the strong majority choosing below average or average. The second question asks trainees to rate their experience in using different types of pest elimination controls. This question produced some of the more promising results, with 73% of participants choosing average or better. The third question asked trainees to rate their level of comfort in using and differentiating pesticides. It's clear from these results that pesticides will be a point of emphasis during the session, with 20% of participants choosing average, 60% choosing below average, and 13% choosing poor. The fourth question asked trainees to rate their ability in properly assessing pest numbers and damage. This question produced the best results out of the five, with 47% choosing average, 33% choosing above average, and 13% choosing good. The fifth and final question asked trainees to rate the amount of previous safety training that they've had. The majority chose below average at 53%. These results lead me to believe that much of the ongoing pest problem is due to poor and inadequate training of employees. Before we get into the core elements of integrated pest management, we must first understand exactly what a pest is and be able to identify and classify the different types. A pest is an organism that interferes with or damages desirable plants and other structures, including homes. Some pests carry and transmit disease and therefore have the ability to impact human and animal health. There are 5 classifications of pests. They can be plants, like a basic weed, vertebrates, like a bird, rodent, or other mammal. They can be invertebrates, like an insect, tick, or mite. They can be pathogens, like bacteria, fungus, or virus. Or lastly, they can be nematodes. The image to the right features silhouettes of some different types of pests. See if you can name and classify them all. If we briefly refer back to our training objectives, the first objective was for trainees to know the different classifications of pests and be able to identify them when needed. This slide accomplishes that objective. Integrated pest management, otherwise known as IPM, is a process used to solve pest problems while minimizing risks to people and the environment. Rather than simply eliminating the pests that are visible right now, IPM means analyzing all environmental factors that affect the pest's ability to thrive. With IPM, prevention is key. Preventative measures are taken in order to keep pests from becoming a problem like they are now. This includes growing a healthy crop that can withstand attacks, modifying the climate, disrupting the pest life cycle, or fostering beneficial anti-pest organisms. If we quickly glance back to our training objectives again, the second training objective was for trainees to understand the core principles of integrated pest management and why it is the effective choice. This slide achieves that objective. IPM utilizes 4 different types of control methods to mitigate and further prevent pest numbers. The first type is biological control, which is the use of natural enemies to control pests and their damage. Examples of biological control include predators, parasites, pathogens, and competitors. As you can see, wolves, like the one shown in the picture, would prey on rodents and other small mammals and keep them from harming crops. It is obviously very dependent on location, but natural enemies like this can be very beneficial to the protection of crops. The second type of control method is cultural control, which includes practices that reduce pest establishment, reproduction, dispersal, and survival. Cultural control varies depending on the type of pest, because different pests have different habits and they each react to control practices differently. One example of cultural control would be changing irrigation practices to reduce pest problems, because too much water can increase root disease and weeds. The third type of control method is mechanical or physical controls. These types of controls kill a pest directly or make the environment unsuitable for it. An example of a mechanical control would be a trap for a rodent. Examples of a physical control would be mulches for weed management or a barrier such as a screen to keep birds and insects out of a desired area. The final type of IPM control method is chemical control. As you could probably tell from the name, chemical control is the use of pesticides. Since they can sometimes be hazards themselves, pesticides are used only when needed and in combination with other approaches in IPM. They are selected and utilized in ways that minimize their possible harm to humans and the environment. IPM suggests that when using pesticides to get rid of weeds, that you spot spray just the weeds instead of an entire area of crops that has weeds in it. This reduces the risk of harming healthy crops with the pesticides. An IPM program can't succeed on chemical control alone, however. The most successful and efficient IPM programs utilize a combination of all the control methods. This includes biological, cultural, mechanical and physical, and chemical controls. If we refer back to our training objectives one more time, the third training objective was for trainees to understand and be able to properly utilize the different control methods of IPM. These 4 slides achieve that objective. Another valued aspect of IPM is personal protective equipment, otherwise known as PPE. As we discussed earlier, some pests have the ability to carry and transmit disease. Because of these types of pests, as well as pesticides, it is extremely important to utilize the correct type of PPE when working in the field. The types of PPE used by agricultural workers include aprons, boots, gloves, face shields, goggles, helmets, and respirators. The first 6 types of PPE listed are used to protect the skin from harmful pests and pesticides. Respirators are used along with pesticides to prevent an employee from inhaling any dangerous chemicals. As a trainer, it's important for me to gain feedback from the trainees on what they thought of me as a trainer. Feedback, whether good or bad, will help me to critique my training delivery so that it is better for next time. To do this, a Likert scale type evaluation will be administered to the trainees upon the conclusion of the training session. The evaluation will contain 5 statements regarding my delivery with answers that include strongly agree, undecided, disagree, and strongly disagree. The statements are as follows. Number 1, the trainer spoke clearly and articulated well. Number 2, the trainer made me feel comfortable and included. Number 3, the trainer answered questions satisfactorily. Number 4, the trainer stayed on topic and managed time well. And number 5, I would take another training session with this trainer. As a trainer, I want to be assured that these trainees are leaving my program satisfied and confident with their newly learned skills. What they do with this newly learned information upon completion of the program will show just how much of an impact that the program had on them. To truly gauge the effectiveness of my program, I plan to take the same exact pre-training survey that I used and re-administer it to the same trainees 2 months after the training. Since they will most likely have careers by then and may be relocated, I plan to email this survey to the trainees since I won't have the opportunity to give it to them in person. The survey results will show me the trainees' improvement in their knowledge of the aspects of integrated pest management. Overall, their success and knowledge of the material 2 months later will ultimately show me, the trainer, whether or not the program was effective. That concludes my training presentation on integrated pest management. I thank you all very much for listening.